Okay. So, what's your favorite color?
My favorite color is yellow.
Favorite time of year?
Spring.
Spring. Why's that?
It's time to get outside and have the weather real comfortable to be in.
Favorite food?
Probably spaghetti.
Is that right? Favorite dessert?
Pecan pie.
Incorrect. Try again. Since when has that ever been your favorite?
Well, since whenever.
Since you can't remember Italian cream?
Oh, Italian cream cake that's another one. Yeah.
Okay, but your favorite is pecan.
Yeah.
All right. Is the world flat?
No.
Are you sure?
According to what I've been taught, yes.
Okay. Did man really land on the moon and walk on the moon?
Yes, he did.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, here we are. Your name?
Sam Salley.
Samuel Ray Salley, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you were born?
I was born in 1939, April the 20th.
April 20th. And where were you born?
In Beckton, which is a little community northeast of Lubbock.
When's the last time you've been there?
Probably when I was born.
What do you remember about Beckton?
Nothing. It was just like a little rural community, and I don't even think it's there anymore.
It's there's not much there. But have you been through there at all? As an adult or a teen, or do you remember the last time you went through there?
I don't. It's like sort of northeast, like I say, northeast of Lubbock, but it's like there's not a highway going through it. You don't travel through it to go anywhere, just about. You have to be going to it. So,
Why were y'all there?
Daddy was a preacher there.
So there was at least a church.
Yes.
And your memories of there, when did you leave there? You were only born there? When did you leave there?
I don't know. I was probably 3 years old, something like that.
So no memories at all?
No memories at all.
What are your earliest memories you can think of today?
A little after that, the first thing I can think of, and the only thing I can think of back that early, was I was in the churchyard. Our house was next door to the church, and I was playing in back of the churchyard, and there was this barrel set up on a stand with a faucet on it, and I didn't know it was kerosene. I thought it was probably just water or something. So I put my mouth on the spigot, turned it on, and got a mouthful of kerosene in my mouth. So it was a little tough, but
You remember that?
I remember that, and that's probably the earliest thing I do remember. And I was big enough to be out walking around in the yard, but I don't remember much beyond that. Before.
Do you remember where that happened?
Yeah, Mobile.
Mobeedi.
Mm-hmm.
And Mobeedi is a town in Texas.
Yes, it is. They're in that.
So you would have been after 3 years old, 3 to 6 years old.
Yeah. Right.
Any other early memories of that time? Of early memories?
Nothing sticks out, really. I just don't remember much about that period of time.
Do you remember struggle? Do you remember anything about what it was like in Mobeedi other than drinking kerosene?
It was well, as a lifestyle, it was pretty tough because that was during the Depression, and everybody was having a hard time. I didn't know it, but I was having a pretty good time at 3 or 4 years old.
So you were a kid in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Did color exist, or was everything black and white?
I don't know.
Did you see things in color?
I saw things in color,
Okay.
I guess. Yeah.
Just checking. That was a long time ago. Do you remember your first grade of school?
First grade or
Well, whenever you started school.
yeah, I do. I started school and I can remember getting there and having things go normally, and then one day I said something about a teacher. I said she was a little grouchy. Well, whoever I said it to went and told her, and then she confronted me and said she knew what I'd said about her, and it scared me to death. But I remember stuff like that.
How many kids do you remember being in this classroom?
I don't know. They were fairly small, but probably anywhere from 15 to 20.
And would this have been all ages of kids, or just your first grade age?
In some cases, in some classes, they were all ages. Some they were just first grade.
Do you remember that was Mobeedi, or was that somewhere else?
That was Mobeedi.
And this was a Methodist church community that you were
Yes.
in.
Yeah.
What are your first memories of your mom and dad?
That they were just taking care of us. They seemed they seemed very normal to me. There was no. They pretty much protected us from a hard lifestyle, but they were just going about life as everybody else did, as best they could.
What kind of struggles were they facing that you know about now?
Right. Sometimes we didn't have income. Dad didn't have income. If the church couldn't afford to pay him a particular time of the year, some people would just bring in food, and that's how we got paid sometimes. But it was just a struggle. But they handled it extremely well and kept us sort of protected from it.
Other kids near your house, or you lived in a isolated area?
No, there were other kids around the house, around that area. The boy that lived across the street was just a little bit older than me, but we did a lot of playing together and running around and that sort of thing. But it was just a little small town, and we were right there in it.
When's the first time you remember having to move away to a new town?
It was probably there. When we had to move away, part of it was exciting in the fact that you were going someplace new and meeting new people, and a lot of it was very discouraging because you were leaving all these people behind that you'd made friends with and you'd played with and were a part of your life. You were just walking away from that.
And was that difficult at that time?
Yes, it was. It just sort of the way it was done all the time. Usually a Methodist minister went to a town he was assigned to church, and usually it was for about an average of 3 years. In 2, 3, 4, 5 years, they'd move him on and go to another town. It wasn't, in the Methodist church, it wasn't a long stay. It was just pretty regular.
Well, I'm guessing you didn't know any different, but how did you
No.
feel about that? Was it exciting? Was it?
It was both exciting and discouraging because, like I say, you're leaving people behind, but you're meeting new people, and you've got the encouragement of new experiences.
Wow, that's a good way to look at it now. Is that how you looked at it then?
Probably not. I was always pretty sad to leave, but then again, there was that element of being excited to see where were we going.
What was it like meeting new friends then?
It's hard. You go in and you're the preacher's son. There's other people there, other kids there. They know each other, and you're an outsider, and so you just have to get acquainted and get in the group and become a part of it.
Now, at this point in time, you got a brother and a sister still,
I did.
right? And how did that help?
Well, we just shared the experience. You know, it was Henry was 3.5 years older, and Ellie was a couple of years younger than I. So we just did what we could.
Do you remember walking to school?
Yes, I do. Uh-huh.
Was it the old stories of barefoot in the snow, 19 miles away, or was
Uphill
it normal?
both ways.
Right, uphill both ways. Or was it normal walking to school?
It was just normal. It's like walking anywhere else. We had in Moviti, we had, no, this was in Lorraine, I guess. We had a stretch of vacant lots that we made a path through from one corner up to the other corner, just cutting our trip short to school. And one time I was going through that and looked up, and there was a snake in the pathway, and it was right in front of me. So I just made a big jump and jumped over it and kept running. Never saw it again. But
Who was with you?
nobody. It's just me going to school by myself. We had a dog named Mike. He was a collie, great dog. And sometimes Mike would follow us to school, and sometimes he'd be there when we got out and follow us home. I can remember my little sister putting her in the morning. It was cool, so she wore a big coat. We all did, and in the evening it was warm. It was fall, or so it was warm when we got out. So she didn't want to carry her heavy coat, so she threw it on the dog, buttoned it up, and the dog carried it home for her. So it's just a fun thing like that.
What was she like?
She was really neat. She was blonde-headed, blue-eyed, enjoyed life, had fun. She and I was really closer than we were to Henry. He was a little bit older than we and had his own friends, and they weren't in our group. But we spent a lot of time together, became pretty close.
And she Where were y'all when she died?
We were at Lorraine. Uh, she had cancer. Mother and Daddy took her to Abilene, and they did an exploratory surgery, and cancer was everywhere. They just sewed her back up, and her belly swelled up and got real hard, just real uncomfortable. She lived a tough time.
When did that start, and what was the duration of that time? I mean, when was she diagnosed?
She was diagnosed probably when she was 5, I guess.
Wow. How
And
long did she live with that?
just about a year.
A hard year.
Yeah,
So she died at 6 years old.
yeah. Yeah, that was sort of tough, and it really did a number on me because, like I say, we were really close, and it was just something I had a lot of trouble dealing with.
What kind of support did you have to deal with that?
Well, like I say, Henry was older. He had his groups of friends, and he was there, but he wasn't there. And Mother and Daddy was there for whatever he needed, but they weren't there. So it was just a time of really bad timing.
Was this
trying
fall?
to get over
What
it.
time of year was this?
Do what?
What time of year was this?
It was in the spring. Yeah, and
Do you remember a service?
yes, I do.
What was that like?
Well, in this little town, Lorraine, after we had moved there, Daddy had a sort of a reputation of being a pastor for a building of churches. So when we got there, they built this nice church. And I can remember for the service that it was crammed full. We had to go all the way down to the front. Of course, you would have been a family anyway. But it was just, there were people outside and inside, and the church was full. It was just an unforgetting experience.
Who did the service?
It was what we call the district superintendent. He was the pastor over our area. Like there'd be several churches that he was over, and there's a conference, and it comes down to the district.
How did your parents handle this?
It was Mother didn't do well with it. She just didn't do well at all. But she just got through it. That's all I can say is.
I mean, this was a tough time in your lives,
Yeah.
regardless of health or losing a child, right? Was there anything easy at this point in your life?
No, except for the fact that kids can get lost in the morning, in the moment, and and enjoy some time. But it really was a hard time.
How long do you think it took before you were enjoying or able to take steps forward?
Well, that process starts pretty quick. You have to move from that, but you always take the hard times with you. You can't get away from it. It's there. Um, you can't get rid of it. You can't change it. You can't make it better. You just have to live with it.
Anything else you want to talk about during that time?
Uh, no, they're in Colorado City. They dammed up the canyon, and that's what is now Lake Colorado City. And it's a big lake. But when they opened it to the public, you had to drive across the dam to get. We had to do that to get to my dad's parents' house south of town, and we had what we call they were pet chickens, is what they were. So anyway, we got out on top of the dam because it's the first time we'd ever been on it, and the chicken got loose, and we were chasing the chicken all over the dam. That I remember that, and that was pretty close to that time.
Okay. We being you and Henry.
Yes.
And your parents were still in the car? Or
Yeah.
they were out?
Yeah, they were in that area. Yeah.
How much time did y'all spend out there at that lake?
I'm sorry?
How much time did you spend at that lake in your youth?
A little bit, quite a little bit. We moved away pretty soon after that, so I wasn't right there to be there all the time. But we did enjoy it quite a bit. I had a friend that had a cabin on the lake, so we got to go and visit them and stay 2 or 3 days around the lake and have fun there. It was a good time.
Any church camps back then, things like that?
Yeah, there were a lot of church camps. Basically, that's all we had for summer vacation. And our church camp was out of Abilene, which is Buffalo Gap, and it was a good camp. It was a good time for kids. It was a real good time.
You went there many times.
Yes.
Brother and you.
Yes.
Still different groups?
Yes.
Or
Still
more
different, yeah.
more attached when y'all were loose in the summertime?
Yeah. We were just sort of loose in the summertime. Just wherever we'd go, we'd find things to do and to play games and to be with people. And
Did Ellie dying bring y'all closer together in any way? Or did it push y'all farther apart?
Ellie dying was pretty traumatic for me. I think more so than it was for Henry. It was traumatic for him. But she and I had become so close because we were so close in age, and he was in a different age bracket and had different friends and didn't stay around us much during the day.
But after she died, did that impact y'all's relationship at all?
Some. Yeah, it did some.
Closer?
Closer, yeah. Yeah, it did to a degree.
First memories you have of your new brother, Melvin, coming along. And how long was the time frame between Ellie dying and Melvin being born?
It was probably a couple of years. Um, Melvin was born there, and he, well, I can remember when they told us he was coming, uh, and then when he got there, I was like in junior high, and he was just a newborn.
Okay.
And that's the difference there that we lived with quite a bit. But still, we
So that was more than a couple of years
yes, it was.
between the time she died and when he was born.
Yeah.
Do you remember where y'all were when he was born?
We were still at Lorraine.
Is that where he was born? Is Lorraine, Texas?
He was actually born in the hospital in Stanford, I think is where he was born. I don't think it was Abilene. I think it's Stanford.
Your mom and dad were building churches. You had a reputation for doing this. What did you think your dad did?
What did I think he did?
Yeah, what did you think your dad did? Your early memories of was your dad important? Was he somebody? Did he?
As a minister, I would say he was pretty important.
But was he having a big influence on you?
Yeah, he did. He did, and yet there was this element of time that we were close as a family, but we didn't relate real close as father and son. I don't know what the deal was there, if it was like my fault because I didn't want to be serious about life or anything, but it just didn't seem like that we related that much at the time.
How did he spend a lot of his time with his congregation and with the church and his obligations there?
Yeah, he did. He had quite a bit of time going into, number one, just church operations, and then building churches. He was like a full-time position. Well, they're all full-time, but I mean, he was like out of the house and working every day all the time. So it was a little difficult for us.
So was he home a lot?
Yeah, he was home.
Y'all lived really
We
close
lived,
to the
yeah,
church.
Right. He was home all the time, but just working constantly.
And what about your mom?
She did about the same thing. And anything that the ladies had to do, like prepare meals and take to the church for the guys that are working. Back then, you didn't have companies come in and build you a church. They were built by the members. They built their own churches. Some still do, but all of them did back then. So the ladies would assist and take meals to work days and things like that.
Do you remember a time in your life, all of this is going on? You've been through the lows of your sister. You've got a new brother coming along. At what point do you start looking at life outside of living with your parents? How old were you when you started thinking in that manner?
Actually, in my high school years, when when I did graduate high school, I did go to McMurray and this sort of thing, but I did not go to college. I did not graduate from school.
What'd you go to McMurray for?
I did social studies, just different programs, that sort of thing. I spent several periods of time in school there.
Okay, so
But it wasn't class.
what I'm asking is, when did you start thinking about life after?
Oh,
And your answer is classic, because you're saying,
yeah.
I didn't. You were out of high school and you were just kind of trying to still find your way.
Yeah.
Did
yeah.
you have much hope at that point in time? Did you have despair? Because I don't think you had a clear vision of what you wanted to do.
I didn't have a clear vision. I struggled quite a bit with what I should be doing.
What was Henry doing at this time?
He was in college, and very frankly, Mother and Daddy had done everything they could financially, and there was just no way left for me to go. I could have tried to work my way through, but I wanted to make a living, and that's the direction I took.
Okay, so in high school you didn't have, thoughts of looking out the window and daydreaming of these big jobs somewhere else, of what your
Not really.
career was going to be or anything like that. Because let's say that Henry has already graduated and he's in college. He was at McMurray as well, correct?
Yeah,
And you're still back in high school.
yeah,
Okay, so your last 2 or 3 years of high school, he was gone.
yeah.
And you weren't putting together any ideas of what you wanted to be or become. You're still just having a good time in high school.
Sort of both. I was still having a good time just being a student, but it was sort of hard to. It was difficult. Henry, everything happened easier for him. By the time he did these things, well, I guess I couldn't get much over the fact that I couldn't put Mother and Daddy. They just didn't have the money to send me to college. That's just all there was to it.
Did you want to go to college?
I somewhat did. I was a little bit frustrated as to what I should be doing, but I somewhat wanted to go. But then again, I really felt like I couldn't. I really felt like that it was just impossible for me to go. And
Money-wise?
money-wise, basically, yes.
But if you would have gone, did you have an idea of what you wanted to do? Or was that part of it as well?
That was part of it as well. At that point, I had a little friend of mine, a little elderly lady, had a flower shop that I worked in one summer. And she encouraged me to go in the direction of the flower shop because I seemed to be talented to her. So I had that on the side.
How old were you when you had this job? High school?
Yeah, high school through college, yeah.
And what kind of jobs were you doing there? Task? What do you remember about working there?
It wasn't a full-time job every day, so I'd just get paid occasionally while I was going to school. It was a neat thing, but it was hard to combine that and school and
Where was this?
This was in Lorraine.
Not Seagraves, but in Lorraine.
Yeah, Seagraves is where I graduated.
So you weren't there for very long.
Seagraves, I was there for a couple of years.
But you worked at a flower shop in Lorraine, Texas.
Yeah,
Is that building still there today?
I don't know, I haven't been back. Actually, the building that the flower shop was in was just a residential building. So it looked like any other house.
Really? You worked out of a house?
Yeah.
But you don't remember any of your tasks? What kind of task were you doing that would have made her think this guy's got talent?
Oh, I'd work every holiday and every major day that in the flower shop, and she'd show me how to do something, and I'd just do it. She realized that I was a little more talented than the average, and that's why she encouraged me that was my field. So.
And that's settled in over time.
It did. I don't know what I would have done otherwise. I might have had a more successful life if I'd gone to college and worked my way through. I don't know, but she encouraged me and showed me the way to go.
At what point did you decide to get another job at another flower shop?
Sort of between high school and college age.
In Seagraves?
Yeah.
So you worked at a shop there as well?
Yeah, I worked in a shop.
Another house or more of a business?
It's more of a business. Yeah, it was more of a business. Actually, it was more like a variety business. And I did the floral department. So it was just, and in a small town, there are not many needs for flowers. So
Any flowers y'all kept around your house?
yeah, just different things. But
No, I mean by color, books, decoration in y'all's house?
oh yeah,
Really?
yeah.
Family photos, normal stuff, or was
Normal
your
stuff.
mom, Gladys Salley, a colorful decorator of the house?
She really wasn't. She left that up to me because I could do it, and very frankly, she wasn't comfortable doing it. She didn't have the self-confidence that she was much more comfortable with telling people I did it than she did it.
Proud mom.
Yeah.
What about your family times with your aunts and uncles, things like that?
Basically, just at holiday time, none of them lived the same town we did, so we usually, wherever we were, we'd drive back to Colorado City where Grandma and Grandpa was. And that's mother's parents, and Daddy's parents lived south of Colorado City, so everybody was there. So that's where all holidays happened. And we would meet everybody there, both sides of the family.
Your dad was a fair dad, or was he a little more authoritative, or he let you guys kind of live your own?
He sort of let us kind of live our own situation. He was authoritative at a point. He kept things in order, and he'd use his belt if he had to. But he was a good dad. He was a very good dad.
Do you remember his struggles, or any time that he struggled at all?
I don't think I ever knew when he struggled. I'm sure he did. But I didn't. we weren't. He didn't share that much intimacy of his struggles with us.
Your first car.
My first car
Mhm.
was a '53 Ford convertible.
And who bought this car?
I did. I was working, and the car was pretty cheap, actually. It was an old, I don't know what year it was, but what year I was living in, but this '53 Ford was, you know, I had already graduated. It was probably 8, 9 years old. But it was a neat car. I loved it. It was a red convertible, and it was just great.
So you were working, you were out of high school. Where were you living?
I was working in Seagraves. I was working at the variety store, which I had the flower department in. And
What were you doing? Still living at home?
yeah, at that point I was. I didn't leave home until I graduated, and actually Mother and Daddy were moved to somewhere else. So I found a place to live.
In Seagraves.
Yeah,
You stayed and they moved.
yeah, because the church moved him on.
And you were still single at this time.
Yeah. So,
So there's a gap
yeah,
that you were living on your own.
yeah. It's a very small gap, actually. I moved in, they went to Plainview, and I pretty much later went up there also, and that's where I met Pat, and we were married, and I was working at a flower shop there.
In Plainview. Do you remember
Yeah.
what it was called?
The flower shop, I think. I think that was the name of it, the flower shop.
My gosh. So, what are your overall memories of Seagraves, Texas? Do you have church memories? Do you have working at this variety store, high school? And what do you? Did y'all have a graduation party at the house or anything? Did you go to friends' parties? I mean, how did you handle graduating high school in this? Let's sum up Seagraves.
Okay, Seagraves was a great place. I really loved my time there. It was difficult to the degree that I had to work around different things there. Seagraves was it was all about graduating, all about partying, and having fun with. That was the time in my life that I had the most friends, probably, and had a good time, enjoyed it, and it was just probably the best point of my youth was the Seagraves years.
And adulthood was quickly coming at you.
That's right.
Did you know this? Did you feel an adult life headed your way, or did you?
I did, and it was like it was like, you know, that life was framing up a culture for you, more or less. And life just sort of happened. I didn't feel like I made it happen on my own. I feel like it just happened. I don't feel extremely proud of doing anything at that particular time. I just had a good time.
Okay, we are back, and a couple of more things about Seagraves. At what point did you start to realize where you had kind of come from and start noticing success or wealth of other people versus maybe your family or stuff like that? Did this happen during middle school, high school, or beyond?
It happened more in high school. So I felt like it was a real struggle, and then we moved to a time that seemed like there wasn't a lot of wealth, but it seemed like everybody had everything they needed, and it was going good.
So Seagraves was a good time.
Yeah.
And the
it was.
addition of a car in your life obviously was a confidence boost as well.
Yeah. As far as a car, at that point, I was really driving the family car more than anything, and we had a 4-door yellow Studebaker, which is, all of my friends thought it was a dud. So the back end was sort of high on it and all of that, so I had some friends help me, and we got this great old big rock and put it in the trunk and lowered the back end a little bit. And that...
Just to try to be cool.
Yeah, that way, me and my friends could drive around and it looked cool. Daddy didn't like it too much.
Did he take the rock out? Did he leave the rock?
He made us take it out.
I got you. So what kind of music were you listening to at this time of your life?
Well, at this time in my life, of course, I was into church music already.
In high school?
Yeah, I was playing for church, that sort of thing. But I also liked very much the popular tunes. At that point, they were sort of what we listen to now is classical, not, I don't mean classical in the way of the classical nature sense. I'm talking about
Classics?
Classics, yeah.
What is a classic to you? What were you listening to in high school?
Well,
Elvis
I
Presley?
was listening to light classics, which were just that. I don't know how else to say it.
Who were singing these songs?
Well, a lot of people. The popular people at that point was like Teresa Brewer and all kinds of, I don't even remember a lot of them. But it was a time when music was happy and everybody knew the simple little songs that were popular and everybody sang. So it was sort of neat.
But the artists, who were they? Who was singing these songs?
Well, Perry Como.
Perry Como.
People like that. I don't even recall everybody. But it was just a combination of whoever was popular in music was who was being listened to.
So 40s, this would have been in the late 50s.
Yeah, this would have been the late 50s.
And whoever was popular, so you were listening to.
Yeah.
And it was so influential, you can remember nobody other than Perry Como and who?
Teresa Brewer and I can't remember. I really can't remember who else. If they come to mind.
Do you still enjoy that type of music today?
Yeah, I started to.
So what was your musical influence? When did you start playing music? What made you want to learn to play the piano?
Oh, I started that pretty young. Uh, Daddy had, we moved to a town, well, I can't remember, I think it's Lorraine. Uh, and there was this school teacher that was a music teacher that was a member of the church. So Daddy asked her to take me on as a student, which she did, and that's where I started.
At
Yeah.
what age?
Probably, what is junior high?
And was this easy reading music and learning to play?
It
Was she a great teacher, or it was just came easy to you?
Actually, it was, she was a good teacher. I enjoyed the music, so I was a pretty good student, but I wasn't happy at just playing what she wanted me to play. I wanted to move on and do the fun stuff, you know.
Such as? Describe fun stuff.
Popular things that were going on.
Okay, a lot like when I would hand you music, and you looked at me like I was crazy. I remember handing you Van Halen
Yeah.
and Motley Crue. I wanted you to play Home Sweet Home, Motley Crue on your piano, and you just thought I was nuts.
No, I didn't think you were nuts.
You didn't know the music.
I didn't know the music, and I couldn't actually read it that way.
And is that how she felt about what you wanted to play? What did she want you to play?
Well, she wanted me to do the classical stuff, you know, the classical,
Like real classic.
the real classics, and I wanted to do the popular stuff.
Jerry Lee Lewis.
Yeah,
You wanted to bang on that piano.
yeah,
Is that more in line with what you're trying to say?
pretty much.
You wanted to play some rock and roll music on the piano.
Yeah, and two, this was a little bit before rock and roll, but it was popular music was just all kinds of stuff.
It was upbeat, jazzy, kind of just
Yeah.
upbeat music.
Right.
They had come out of a depression,
Yeah.
and everything was real exciting.
Yeah.
Now, are you seeing things on TV at this point in time, or are you just radio only?
I'm both.
Both. So
I
you
will- I
remember your-
listen to a lot of radio.
even at home, radio talk shows,
Yeah.
radio
and
sitcoms
yeah. Well, and TV wasn't that
developed.
developed yet. But most of what I listened to was on my radio.
Where was y'all's first TV? Do you remember when y'all got a TV?
Yeah, I do. It was a great, big white set. It was like, well, it was like a piece of furniture more than a TV, but it had a TV. So, and it was used. And Daddy brought it in, and I can just remember, and it had a beautiful picture on it. And it was in the fall, and for the first time, I saw colored TV that looked colored. And this,
Now this was y'all's first TV. This wasn't a second or third black and white TV. This was your first TV.
This was the first TV.
Do you remember what brand it was?
No, I don't.
How did your mom feel about this TV? She watched it all the time.
She liked it. She liked anything that we kids liked. She was, she just enjoyed when we were happy.
So is this when you learned about celebrity and things like that?
Yeah.
TV.
It was, yeah.
Interesting. And so when were you playing church music?
I started pretty young playing church music. Um, I not necessarily playing for church, playing church music, and then I moved into playing for services pretty quickly.
What was that like?
It was, I loved it. I liked it. And I thought I did a great job at it. I just felt like it was something I was supposed to be doing.
The preacher's kid playing music in the church.
Yeah,
Do you feel like that was a calling of any kind?
I sort of do. Yeah, I think it was.
Because you did it the majority of your life.
Yeah, I continued as long as I was going up until recent years. That's what I did.
So your dad had a calling to preach, right?
Right.
And that was pretty strong. That was real. This wasn't just a job to him.
That's right.
Or was it?
No, it was a calling.
Okay, and Henry in this time is becoming a young preacher, and he really didn't want to be a preacher, did he?
He pretty much did, I think.
If he wasn't a preacher, what do you think Henry would have been?
I never saw him as anything else. It seems like that was his destiny from day one.
Okay, so let me explain this. So Henry goes off to college. He's not really a preacher yet, is he? Or is he? Has he already been preaching a little bit now?
He started. His first sermon was while he was like a sophomore in college.
Oh, really? He didn't preach any in high school?
No,
You don't remember that?
I don't remember any of that.
Okay. So, but is it possible he could have preached somewhere, somehow in high school?
Sure.
And then your ability to play the piano and the organ and things like that was your way of contributing in the church.
Right. Yeah.
And you felt good about that.
I did. I felt great.
How did your mom and dad feel about that?
They always made me feel good about it. I sometimes felt like I should be not doing something else, but maybe not doing it in church. But then again, there was times I had to.
Did it in any way bring you and your dad closer?
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, we worked services together that way.
It's just amazing. I mean, it would have been really fun to see. Because I don't remember, well, now that I think about it, I do remember him preaching and you playing.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I mean, it wasn't often, but he was still preaching when I was born.
Yeah.
Somewhere, Colorado City or...
Right, yeah.
Or, no. He was in Sunray.
Sunray.
Or other places like that.
Right.
That's what I remember.
Yeah.
Is a very small town church, and I remember lightning storms and tornado warnings, and I don't remember really church there. I remember church in Kahoma.
Yeah.
He was still preaching there, and I think you might have played in Kahoma just a weekend that we went for church, or you came up for the summertime or something.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything like that?
I remember, yeah. I can remember going to Kahoma for the weekend for
To
church
play.
service. Yeah, to play.
Because he needed somebody to play or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Now Melvin was still hanging around in Kahoma,
Yeah,
correct?
I think so. Yeah. He. Let's see. How old would he be at this point?
I don't know. I mean, if I can remember Kahoma, I would have been, between 3 and 7 years old. So that would have been in the early 70s,
So he was probably in what, his high school years?
probably.
Yeah.
Where did he graduate high school?
Roby, I think. Yeah.
And Roby is where I remember storms. I think I remember Roby.
Yeah.
I don't know. Where they went from Roby to Sunray, or was it Sunray to Roby?
I think it went from Sunray to Roby,
Okay.
I believe.
No, I remember him in those houses and
Yeah.
being, influential in my life as
Yeah.
an uncle. It
Right.
may not have made sense to me how my uncle was so young,
Yeah.
or why I felt like an uncle should be old. I don't know,
Right.
but
Right.
it just seemed like
Most uncles are a generation older, so
he
that-
was a lot of fun.
yeah.
Wow. So, what do you remember about playing your first time in church?
It was a little scary.
Do you remember what you played?
No, I don't remember anything about what I
Did you
played.
hit all the keys?
I hit all the keys. But it was, like I said, it was a little bit scary, but I wanted to do it. I think I did it well, and everybody seemed to say so. So,
Everybody liked the preacher's kid
Yeah.
up there playing.
yeah.
And how many people were in church at this point in time? Were people coming to y'all's church? Did you have a pretty good crowd every week? Was it thin and there was no hope? Did he have a congregation of really people that wanted to come hear him preach?
Yeah, he had a fairly good congregation. People not only wanted to come hear him preach, but people that had been there all their lives. That's just where they went to church.
Knowing what you know now, though, as far as how preaching goes and styles of preaching, and how do you feel that he was when it came to his style of preaching? Was it an uplifting style? Was it a hard-working style? What message was he overall known for bringing?
He pretty much was an uplifting style. He challenged and he preached praise, more or less, and it was he was good at that. He was real good at that.
No, praying. Is that something that y'all did at the family table?
Yeah,
Y'all held hands, said a prayer, God bless this meal,
yeah, we did.
and it was real.
Yeah.
When do you remember ever questioning faith at all?
No,
To this day,
no,
it's real.
it's real, and I just accept it as it is.
Do you pray daily?
I do. I pretty much pray daily. Every time I have to do something that I'm not sure about, I have a little prayer going in my head.
Really?
Yeah, constantly.
And your parents taught you this, or you just did it? They influenced you in any way?
They influenced me in the way that that's what you do when you meet obstacles. You pray about it and go through it. And I just prayed about everything. It just is. It's something that gets you confident in an unconfident situation. It changes your ability to meet a task and go on.
Wow. That's powerful. Do you remember prayers being answered?
Yeah, you have to be careful about that. I prayed.
It was a trick question.
I prayed once that I had lost something, and I said, I prayed, show me where it is. You know, that didn't get answered. That was not the kind of prayer I was supposed to be praying. But nonetheless, it was interesting.
Henry thinks in today's environment, people ask too much of the church and aren't asking themselves what they can do to be part of the solution or part of the answer, that they're asking the church to kind of be their hospital.
Yeah.
Do you see that? Do you agree with that?
I guess I do to a certain extent.
People are going to church wanting all their problems solved.
Yeah.
Is that TV church or is that real church?
I think it could be either. In my opinion, it could, if you've got the right attitude, TV church is church. You know, it doesn't bother me that it's TV.
That they're using it to sell books and sales and gain wealth and do all these amazing things on the television.
Sometimes that takes over.
That's a big business. TV church is big business.
Yeah, it is.
You agree with that, correct?
Yeah, I do.
Do you think S.H. Homer Salley, Reverend Salley, your dad, could have been a TV preacher?
I don't see him as a TV preacher.
So there's two different kinds of church.
That's true.
There's church and there's TV church.
Right.
Now there may be more. There's really big church.
There's really
big churches, and there's still really small churches.
Right, definitely.
And you think that, well, I know the answer to this. The message is definitely different at bigger churches.
Yeah.
Bigger congregation, bigger bills to pay, bigger things going on. They got a lot more stuff going on. Did you enjoy going to bigger churches or back to small town Kahoma, Sunray, Lorraine churches? What do you prefer?
pretty much enjoyed the big church.
Really?
I like the formality of the music, that sort of thing, which you don't get a lot of that in the smaller churches. Some to a degree, but not like that. And I enjoyed that. But I could also appreciate what goes on in a small service.
So you enjoy the music of the big church because it's a bigger production.
Right.
You still enjoy traditional church music.
I do.
What's your opinion on the new church music? The more up to date with the live band and the drummer and all the new style of hymns. You like traditional hymns? Or you I know you do, but do you somewhat like some of the new music as well?
I like traditional hymns, modern music. I like some of it when it gets to be sort of a crossover from country western to church music. It gets a little hard to take sometimes. But
Whose style of preaching did you prefer to listen to, Henry's or your dad?
I enjoy listening to both of them, but I'm more comfortable listening to Dad's style. That's just what I grew up with.
And Henry ran some good churches
Yes, he did.
and did a lot of good things.
Yeah.
Were you surprised when your brother got his first church?
No, I expected that.
And that was good.
Yeah.
Did you ever go stay with him or
No.
play in his church at all?
I probably played in his church a time or two, but I never did go stay with
Do you
him.
remember the last time you would have played for a service with your brother?
With my brother?
Was it in Levelland? Was it anywhere like that? Brownfield? Do you remember playing? Plainview maybe? Do you remember playing a service with your brother?
I think it'd be Levelland. Yeah. I guess so.
Yep. Do you remember playing with Ruby in
Yeah, I
Hammond?
do. I
That was a
enjoyed
small
that.
church.
Do what?
That was a small church.
It was a small church.
Small town church.
Yeah.
And how did you enjoy her style of preaching? She could preach and break into song and then continue to preach.
That's right.
Do-
Uh,
Was
I
that
like
entertaining? Was that fulfilling? Or was that just her own style?
That's her style. A number of talented preachers can do that. Most can't. But she did that well. She really did.
Powerful lady.
Hmm.
How many other pastors do you remember having an impact on you? Just influential to you in any way.
Well, because I tried to be open to whatever was happening around me, it wasn't difficult to be influenced and to have a good impact from a minister. And it wasn't necessarily a minister that I was working with all the time.
Now you were a choir director for many, many years.
Right.
The majority of my young life growing up.
Right.
So I guess I'll rephrase that question. Were you able to be influenced and listen to these preachers, or were you focused on the music?
I'm pretty much focused on the music. That's really my thing. Now I do try to relate the ministerial element coming in there, but I pretty much relate on the music.
Any particular Sunday that you enjoy? Like Easter Sunday, Christmas Sundays, or Thanksgiving worship, or do you have a particular time of season where you enjoy the message more than others?
Christmas and Easter are about my favorite.
Now, are Christmas hymns more your favorite, or just traditional year-round hymns? Silent Night, you like all those types of songs in church?
I do.
Do you enjoy playing those better?
I enjoy playing them. No, I don't know that it's better, but I enjoy that.
Now, back when you were the choir director at St. Matthew's Church on 50th Street in Lubbock, Texas, was that your first choir director job?
Yeah.
How did you get that job?
Well, we lived there. Mother and Daddy was pastor there.
At St. Matthew?
Yeah, years ago.
On 50th Street?
On 50th Street.
50th and Slide, St. Matthew.
Oh, that,
Over by the
Yeah.
Sizzler, the Western Sizzler, whatever it's called. That was not your first job.
right, no.
What church are we talking about where you were first choir director?
Pioneer Memorial,
All right, Pioneer Memorial. Now, this would have been a long time ago.
a long time ago.
Now, you were choir director for Pioneer for how long?
Probably 4 or 5 years.
So, choir director means music director, does it not?
Yeah.
Music, choir.
And in some cases, like there, it means, you pick out the music, you pick the songs. Sometimes the pastor wants to do that himself.
Who was the pastor when you were hired there?
When I was hired there, I don't even remember his name.
And why did they hire you?
Oh, they didn't hire me. St. Matthew. I was going to there. I was a member there.
At Pioneer.
Attending church at Pioneer. No, wait, are we talking about Pioneer? or
Pioneer.
something?
Was that your first choir director job?
That was my first.
And how did you get that job?
Uh,
Were you just a member at that church
I
as well?
was just a member there, and
And your dad had preached there prior?
yeah, and also seems like they lost people in the music department that moved away or something like that, and they just needed me, so I just moved into it. Rarely were any of these paying positions.
Okay.
one or two of them was. But,
So this was out of the kindness of your heart.
oh yeah, yeah,
The desire to do this for no extra pay at all.
right,
No extra benefit at all.
none,
Just a member of the church directing the choir.
yeah,
That's unheard of today, right?
right.
A choir director, music director at a church now is a paid position.
When they, I think it was like at St. Matthew, they started paying me. And for a long time I wasn't comfortable with that, so I'd sign my check and put it back in the collection plate for a long time.
Really?
Yeah,
Even though you could have used the money.
very easily I could have used the money. I needed it. But
I did not know this.
it just was one of those things that I just needed to do that, just out of the right feeling in my heart.
Wow. Who came to you and wanted to pay you? The church?
The church did. They started issuing me a little check. I don't even remember what it was, but it was, you know,
Now this was not at Pioneer. This was at St. Matthew, or this was at Pioneer?
this was at St. Matthew.
St. Matthew. So, how old were you when you were choir directing at Pioneer? You would have been fairly young. 20s or
20-ish.
upper 20s?
I'd say 19, 20, and
Really?
25, or somewhere in there.
And you were the official choir director of this church, 19 to 25 years old.
Yeah,
And what church did you go to after Pioneer?
St. Matthew.
Why did you leave Pioneer? Did you have friends that went to this other church? Did you move across town?
I moved across town. We had the whole family went to Pioneer. I mean to St. Matthew, and
Meaning you, mom,
yeah,
and both mom and both daddy,
yeah,
and your kids were we born at this time?
yeah, yeah. You were going to.
Where was I going to church before St. Matthew? At Pioneer?
Pioneer.
So I don't have any. I have
You were
zero,
a baby at Pioneer. That's when you were born.
zero memory of Pioneer.
Yeah,
None.
You wouldn't have one, probably.
So you're telling me that St. Matthew was the church I grew up in,
Yeah.
but you don't remember an exact reason of why you went there. Did something happen at Pioneer?
It started Hispanics pretty bad. It was the conference sort of gave it to the Hispanic conference.
The church was changing.
Yes, church was changing,
Demographics of the church
Yeah.
were changing.
and I wasn't what they needed, and they weren't what I needed.
Gotcha.
So I
That brings up a whole nother topic, but we will talk about that
yeah.
later when we talk about today and today's environment versus all of these old times. So why did y'all choose St. Matthew? Was there a preacher there? Was there something you liked about the look of the building?
They asked me, I think, to do some directing over there. And I started working over there. And then we just started going. And we stayed.
Do you remember the first preacher you had there?
Yeah. Can't call his name.
There was quite a few preachers that went through there, correct?
Do I?
Quite a few preachers went through there.
Yeah.
And they would come in and they wouldn't change the music program or anything. They would just try to fit in.
Most of them didn't even want to mess with it. Some of them wanted their say about it, and you know, that's great. I was happy about that. But yeah, quite often I was doing everything that needed to be done musically.
You can put them out. Looks like it's time for tacos.
Good.
So, you were a choir director for a big majority of your life.
Right.
From, you were at least playing the piano from what age? You were playing some sort of instrument in the church starting at what age?
Probably, let's see. Probably starting around 11 or 12.
Wow. 11 or 12. You're
Because
playing?
I
playing
could play
in-
for some things.
Okay.
And or sometimes I'd play for night service.
Now,
because it'd
11 or
just be-
12 means in 1950-ish, early 50s, you started playing in church.
Yeah.
And you did that all the way up until you left
Yeah.
St. Matthew. Right? You were not a choir director again after St. Matthew.
No.
And that would have been in the late 80s or early 90s.
Probably early 90s.
Because your first grandchild was born in 93. And we were married in that church in 91. So it would have been early
Early.
90s. You were still there.
Yeah.
Wow. 40 years you spent going to church on Sundays and playing and in some capacities directing a choir.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
I felt great about it. I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it?
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. All right, you ready for tacos?
All right.
Okay, I'm going to say something to you, and you're going to tell me what you're feeling and what your thoughts are. Okay?
Okay.
So if I say Patricia Hoover,
Okay, that was my first love.
how does that make you feel hearing that today?
Very good.
And the first time y'all met?
Well, we met at church. It was probably in late 57.
Okay, so you're not 20 years old yet.
No.
You're 18. What is she doing at your church
She was a member there
when you got there?
when I got there.
So you get there with your dad and mom.
Yeah,
Henry is gone.
he's gone.
So you're got a little brother,
Right.
right? And you get to Pioneer Methodist Church in Lubbock, Texas.
Right.
And how long are you at this church before you meet her?
It was a while. Mother and Daddy came at conference time. They moved here at conference time. I didn't. I went to Denver for a design school.
At 18.
Yes, and it was just a short, like a design seminar, and I was there about 6 weeks, and then I came home and moved in with Mother and Daddy, and started going to church with them. So that's how we met. It was at
Okay, so
church.
you left Seagraves
Mhm.
and went to Denver,
Denver.
Colorado,
Right.
and then they came to preach here
Yeah.
in Lubbock,
Right.
and that's how you got to Lubbock.
Yeah.
Moved in with them after the Cliff Mann Design School,
Right.
okay? And your first memories of Patricia Hoover?
Well, actually, like I was saying about coming up behind her and putting my hands in her coat and all, that was really about the first time I really saw her or knew who she was.
You felt that comfortable. You walk
Yeah.
up behind her
Yeah.
and say, "My hands are freezing."
I don't remember anything before that concerning her.
So this could have been the first time you've ever talked to her.
I think we probably knew each other a little bit from church before that.
And why were
But
your
not
hands?
a lot.
Why were your hands so cold?
It's cold outside.
So y'all were outside at church.
Yeah. We just got out of church and it's cold. And she had gloves on and this nice big coat. And so I just stuck my hands in her gloves, her coat pockets.
From around her sides. Reached around.
Yeah.
And she was dressed nice.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something she ended up being well dressed her whole life?
She did, yeah.
Even
Well,
back then.
actually, people dress a little bit better then, especially like going to church like that.
I got you.
They were just better dressed than they are today. It's a little more casual.
So you're not saying that's how y'all met. You're just saying that's.
It's the first time I remember personal comments and contact and that sort of thing.
Was putting your hands in her pocket.
Yeah.
And how long did your hands stay in those pockets?
Well, she immediately put her hands in there too and held my hands, and it was a good little bit that my hands were in her pocket.
Were y'all together from there forward?
And not necessarily, but somewhat. I mean, we always we sort of gravitated to each other, and then we started dating. I asked her out, and it was just a time that was simple but nice.
Wow. And how long did y'all date?
I think we dated like 8 or 9 months before we got engaged. That came pretty soon.
Wow. 8 or 9 months.
Seems like.
And y'all were going to get married. So at this point, you're 19 years old.
Yeah, and actually we weren't looking for a quick ceremony. We just got engaged, and let's see, we just.
You had to be older than 19. I don't know why I said 19. You'd been out of high school. You'd been to a little bit of time on your own in Seagraves. You'd been to Denver. That's another 6 months. So you were 19 or 20.
Yeah. I think when we married, I was 20.
So you married in 1959.
Right.
20 years old. How old was she? She would have been 50. She would have been 21 or 22, right?
She's 21.
She was 1 year older or 2?
She's 1. A little bit more than 1.
Gotcha. Did you remember meeting her parents for the first time?
Yeah. I met her parents. They were very nice. Her father was just I was real comfortable around him. And then really soon, cancer was detected in his brain, and Mother and Daddy went with the family to Houston, and but he didn't pull through. They did a surgery, and she lost her father then. But he was really a great guy.
Wow. How did that impact y'all as a couple?
I think it might have brought us closer together. Maybe she needed that closeness at that time. But think his impact was real lasting. He was very influential.
To her.
Yeah.
Where were you working at the time?
I was working Seagraves Floral.
No, you're in Lubbock.
Oh, and I'm in Lubbock. Okay, yeah, that's right.
When y'all were dating and about to get married, where were you working?
Oh, actually, I'd been to Denver. I came back, and I was working at the flower shop, Baldwin's.
At Baldwin's.
And
At a very young age.
yeah,
20 years old.
yeah.
Okay.
And that job I kept for 40 some odd years. It was a job I enjoyed. It's a job that, while it wasn't a high paying job, it was a constant paying job. That's what I needed.
And what was she doing during this time?
She was going to beauty school.
Here in Lubbock.
Yeah. And Jessie Lee's beauty salon, beauty school. And she completed that and was working in a beauty shop.
Normal salon, doing hair,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Basically.
And how did you propose to get married? Or did you propose? Did she?
We talked about it a lot, just both of us together. And I think we just decided that, I went ahead and got a ring. And
So no big proposal.
No, it was pretty much common knowledge that this is what we were going to do, and that's what I did.
And so y'all had a wedding.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a bachelor and bachelorette party? Did she go out with the gals and you went out with the guys?
She went out with the girls. I don't think I had that kind of a party. I don't think they did that then. But she had a party with her bridesmaids and then people.
Where was this wedding held?
At Pioneer Memorial.
So is that Pioneer?
Mm-hmm.
And who was your best man?
My best man was a guy from the church. His name was Luke, and he. After that, for some reason, we just sort of drifted apart. We didn't stay close after that at all. I don't know why, but it was just a situation that he went his way and I went my way.
And what about the maid of honor?
She worked with Pat at the beauty shop, and we knew her for quite a long time.
Okay, so you get married on a Saturday
Yeah.
or a Sunday?
No, Sunday afternoon.
Got married on a Sunday afternoon after church.
Yeah.
Any big flowers or anything like that? Just
Yeah,
a bouquet and a boutonniere?
Yeah, we had bouquets and boutonnieres, and, regular church wedding.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
And where did the flowers come from?
Baldwin's.
Who did the work?
Mr. and Miss Baldwin and Newell set up the wedding for me.
Really?
Yeah. They were there and set it all up.
No charge?
No charge. And
For nothing? No, they gave you the flowers and everything?
as far as I remember, I didn't pay anything. And of course, they also pulled it after the wedding and set it up so that it was real nice of them.
So you were working for them and they thought so much of you. They were going to do that for you at no
I
charge.
guess so, yeah.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And y'all go anywhere for your honeymoon? You
We
left
went
the
to
church
Red
that
River.
day. You left the church that day
Yeah.
and drove to Red River, New Mexico.
Actually, we went to Clovis and spent the night because I wasn't going to drive all the way to.
This is in a red convertible Ford.
Mm-hmm.
You still have that car.
Yeah. Well, actually, we didn't take that car. We took Daddy. He had a new Chevy Bel Air, a real pretty car. And so we took it because it was safer and didn't drive it forward.
And the following day, you made it all the way to Red River.
Yeah.
And stayed for how long?
We stayed for 4 or 5 days. It wasn't a full week, but it was almost.
Had a good time.
Had a good time. Yeah, we sat see during the day and just maybe eat out in the evening, that sort of thing. It was just a nice but conservative time.
Okay, so you're off to a good start in your relationship, apparently, and you're married. And what do you remember after that? Struggle, success, starting a family. What do you remember about that?
Well, first of all, it was just a great time. We enjoyed the time we had, and it was quite a while before we adopted Liz Kay. Number one, we wanted to have some time, and number two, that took a lot of time. But it was a good thing. It got us not in a hurry. Life just happened, and it was good.
Okay, y'all got back from Red River, and y'all lived where?
We actually rented an apartment on 16th Street. It was a duplex. We lived next door to the landlady. It was right about 16th and X, I think, or something like that. Is right. You know where that Redeemer Church is at the end of 16th Street? We lived about half a block from there.
And how did you find this place?
I think it was just an ad in the paper.
And y'all did not live there before the wedding?
No.
Okay, so
we
it was
moved in
waiting
after.
for you when you came back, or y'all had to live with your parents for a little while?
We had the apartment rented, and then we were able to come back and move into it after we got back.
Okay. And so, this would have been 5 years between your marriage and having a child.
Yeah.
Now, why adoption? What kind of struggles were these? of
We
trying to-
could not. We spent some time trying to have children. It just didn't happen. Come to find out, Pat's mom was talking to Dr. Salem, who had just done surgery on Pat for female situation, and so I asked if that was a possibility. That's why we couldn't have children. He said it is a possibility. He didn't say yes, he didn't say no, but anyway, I was glad it left it at that, because I don't think her mother liked it that I asked. But just thought it was, I should know what he found out.
Right.
And anyway, that's what happened.
Very disappointing.
Yeah,
Struggle for both of y'all.
right.
How are y'all able to overcome that?
Actually, I think it was because we had a good relationship, and it was just a new challenge the next day, and it was everything was just forward from there.
Still going to church every Sunday.
Right. Yeah.
Still playing.
Still playing.
Are you directing that music and
I'm
that
directing
choir?
some of that music about that time.
And then you decide to sign up for adopting a child. How is that even possible? Back then, what did you have to do?
Well, we went through Methodist Mission Home in San Antonio because of being Methodist, because we had not connections, but we had contacts with them due to the fact that church sponsored and kept it up. So we applied there and was eventually accepted. It was a long sort of back then it was really hard. It was a long process. And it wasn't just something you found out the next week. It was like months in the process of getting okayed. But it was good. We got approved, and then it took quite a long time before they called us and told us that we could pick up a baby day after tomorrow. I mean, just out of the clear blue sky. And somehow, I mean, in ways that's a little more of a shock than knowing for 9 months you're going to have it on that day. But anyway.
So you were trying to have a child, but you
Yeah.
really weren't prepared to have a child.
Right, yeah.
You didn't have a room built,
No,
a crib built. You didn't have all these things done.
no.
Where did you get a crib back then, by the way? Did you just run down to the local Walmart and pick one up?
Yeah, that, and we found one used that I redid down on Avenue H when we knew this was happening
Pretty quick.
pretty quick.
So you're 25, 26 years old at this time.
Mhm.
Everything other than that is great.
Yeah,
Your mom and dad are still busy building a church
right.
somewhere. He's preaching at Pioneer still.
Still,
And Henry is off running a church somewhere at that time, right?
yeah, he is. I'm not sure exactly where he was.
He was in Dallas for a while, right?
Yeah, he was in Dallas for a while. And I can't think what that first church was. Avoca, I believe, was his first church.
Interesting. So, you run down to San Antonio and pick up this kid. What car did you take to go down there?
Daddy's.
Took his car again.
Yeah.
You're still driving your.
Still driving the old convertible.
5 years later, you're still driving the old convertible. Now, does mom have a car or no?
Yeah.
Did y'all have two cars at that
We
time?
had two cars. We bought a '57 Chevrolet. It was very plain, very run of the mill. It wasn't nice like Daddy's, but it was a '57.
Okay.
And it turned, it became our car of stability.
So you pick up this little girl, come back, and everything just adjusts normally, or was this a struggle?
I don't think it was a struggle. Uh, it maybe it had some pressures and all of that, but I think it went pretty well. We'd waited so long and was so ready that I think it went okay.
So this child behaved.
Fine.
Everything was fine.
Yeah.
And you decided, hey, we want another one.
Yeah.
Why? Why in the world would you want another one?
Well, I ask myself that now, but no, I'm kidding. We just didn't want an only child. We didn't feel like that's what is fair to the child nor what we wanted, so we wanted at least 2 kids.
So now you've got this second kid, and it came in the same manner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Phone call, middle of the night, we've got a boy, come pick him up.
Yeah.
Very quick, very similar to the last one,
Right.
right?
Oh, and to back up to Lisa Kay, we knew when she was born, but because she was premature, I mean, we didn't know when she was born. We knew that she was 26 days old when we got her, and she was premature, so that's why the difference there. But you were like 5 days old.
Yeah, fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay, so being young parents and everything's getting started, what kind of obstacles and hurdles were y'all facing at this point? Now you've got 2 kids.
Adjustments at home, physical, getting rooms ready and stuff like that, and all of that. It wasn't a terrible upheaval at all. Just to adjust and take on what's next.
How much money were y'all making at the time?
I started bringing home my first paycheck. My bring home pay was $42.50 a week.
Okay. What about mom?
By then,
Oh, go ahead.
I was probably bringing home 50 something.
$50 a week.
Yeah.
42 to 50 something. Now this is the most you've ever made.
Yeah.
Easily.
Easily.
So $160 to $200 a month.
Yeah. And quite often, well, for a period of time, Pat was making more than I was.
Because $200 a month is $2,400 a year.
Yeah.
You could go a whole year on $2,400.
Well, yeah. You had to. But
I mean, that sounds unbelievable in today's.
It virtually is.
$2,400 a year. That's crazy. But mom was making more.
Yeah. She was, if she had a busy week, she would bring in, if I was bringing in, say, the 50 something, she might be bringing in 60 to 70 maybe.
And that was okay at that time?
It was okay at that time.
Y'all didn't need much, or it was okay?
Well, our biggest expense was the apartment, and it wasn't bad. Yeah, we did okay.
What made y'all get your first home? Growing young family?
Yeah.
Needed more room?
Needed more room, and actually, we bought a little house on 29th Street off of Flint. Bought it for $8,200.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a 2-bedroom. So.
Shared bedroom for the kids.
Right. So pretty soon after that, we added on a master bedroom and a dining room. So that left each of y'all a room and our master bedroom. And then that was a living room, a kitchen, and a dining room by our bedroom. So it worked out pretty good after we
Pretty
made
good
the
deal.
additional. Yeah.
Young homeowner, young family,
Mhm.
things are looking pretty good.
Yeah, and we pretty much had ourselves, we had ourselves strapped to the payment.
You spent everything you made.
Yeah, I just would sign my check and turn it over, you know.
You
That's-
didn't
that's
have
all.
a whole lot of extra money at all.
Not at all.
Not an extravagant lifestyle out of work.
Yeah.
Home and work is what you did.
Right, that's it.
And you probably went to your parents' house for a meal anytime you could.
Yeah, right,
Church meals,
right.
things like that you looked forward to.
Absolutely.
Really, it was that bare bones.
Well, it wasn't that bad. It's just pretty close to it.
Now, y'all were in this house a long time.
We were.
Y'all were in that house at least 10 years.
Actually, yeah, at least 10 years. Might have been a little more than that. Like I say, we added on to it, we remodeled, we did this, we did that.
But you weren't in this house when you had kids.
No, we did have kids in this house.
No, I mean, you had. Where did Lisa Kay come home to? The apartment or the house?
Oh, the house.
So she came home to the house. Okay. So you may not have been in this house 10 years, or would you? There's 3 years right there, because that's the first house I was in. And then I was, the only other house I remember before, I remember going to school on 61st Street. So that would have been 3 and 5, that's 8 years. So
Yeah.
you possibly could have been in that house at least 8 years, maybe 10 years.
Yeah,
Correct?
correct.
And then you moved on.
Mhm.
Anybody else live in that house on 29th Street with us?
With us,
With us, stayed with us often, or just y'all?
just us.
Okay. So on 61st Street, y'all decided to move it on up the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Why the move there?
It basically is about the only option we had. You know, like I say, we paid $8,200 for that house. And it actually was something we could do by pushing it. Otherwise, we probably couldn't have afforded that. So that's, you know, we just sort of live close to the line.
Same thing on 61st Street? How did you have a down payment? How much was this house? If the last one was $8,600, $8,600.
This last house originally we bought for $14,750.
Okay, so $14,000
Yeah,
for your second house.
right.
And why did you like this house? Why did you move to this house?
Well, it was big.
Moving up south,
Yeah,
South Lubbock, trying to move on out there.
and it was while we could afford it, it did. It was tough, but it was a good move up.
It was a fairly new house
Yeah,
at that time.
yeah, it wasn't just terribly old. I don't remember how old it was, but it was.
Now, Melvin spent some time living in this home as well, did he
Yeah,
not?
he did.
And why was that?
So he could work and have a job in Lubbock. Actually, he worked with the flower shop with
Correct.
me.
And how was that working with your brother?
It was fun. Yeah, we did good. We always got along together. No problems.
No
He didn't-
problems.
He didn't give me any problems, and I didn't make any for him, so we did good.
I remember him around a lot,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Y'all added on to this house, converted the garage, or converted. Y'all added a room onto this house. What was that for?
The room we added onto the house would be the third bedroom and the dining room.
So this was a 2-bedroom home as well.
Right.
Y'all left a 3-bedroom to go back to a 2-bedroom. 61st Street.
Okay.
Y'all added a room at 61st. I remember construction in this house for some extra room. Was it to make the dining room bigger?
We made the dining room bigger and spread out into the garage a little bit, and yeah. But
That was a 3-bedroom home,
right.
correct?
Correct.
That's right. And Uncle Melvin started dating this girl from Shallowater during that time, right?
He did.
Deborah and Melvin
Yeah.
became.
Well, Mother and Daddy and Melvin had lived in Shallowater while Daddy was preaching there. So he and she were friends there. But when he moved back into the area with us, they started dating and went from there.
Yep, and good for them. That was great. Okay, let's go back in time because we kind of know the story from here on out. Kids finish a few years in school, then you move to 14th Street, which would become the family home forever. Correct?
Correct.
And kids would go to Rush and McKenzie, and Lisa Kay would go off to Lubbock High School, and then Coronado, and then just life goes on from there. We kind of know the story there. And we kind of heard a lot about where you've come from, and what we haven't really heard is where did Mom come from?
Okay. Mom's home was in Frederick, Oklahoma. She and her brother David and their mom and dad had a restaurant there. And that went down. They pretty much sold what they had in it, moved to Lubbock, where her dad went to work for Hancock Manufacturing Company. And her mom didn't work at the time, but later on went to work for Methodist Hospital.
Work or volunteer?
Work.
She was a paid
position.
Okay.
Yeah. That brought us.
Now she talked about working in a soda shop or something like that when she was young. Was that the restaurant?
I guess so. Yeah.
Drugstore, soda shop. I remember this kind of thing back in Oklahoma, or was that in Lubbock?
No, I think that was in Oklahoma. Yeah. She and her cousin did that.
Okay.
And
That was the family business, or was that something?
no, it was just they didn't have a family business at that point.
So she worked in some sort of soda shop,
Right.
drugstore
Yeah.
during high school.
Yeah. Right.
And when did they move here? What grade or age was she when they moved to Lubbock?
She graduated in Oklahoma
Okay.
and then pretty much moved to Lubbock.
So when they were at Pioneer, she was fairly new to Lubbock.
Yeah.
At that point in time,
At that point in time, yeah.
in her childhood growing up, were they a wealthy family? Were they a moderately wealthy family? Or were they of very little means?
They were pretty. They weren't poverty, but they were.
Keep going.
they were sort of middle class, I'd say.
Okay.
They certainly didn't have an easy life, but they didn't have the worst life either.
Okay. Any struggles, common struggles y'all shared when y'all met each other?
You know, I don't remember there being struggles like that. I don't think anything was that serious that we had to face. We really just had a pretty good time.
What do you remember most about Mom from y'all's early years?
Well, she was a very happy person. She just looked for the best in everybody. She made it easy for you to be your best. She was just a great lady. She was just a super lady, and it was such a shame that her life was so short. But she was a great person. I never ever saw a fault in her.
What do you think she was proudest of? Because, you know, when she, her last few weeks in that hospital and that whole situation, and she was stronger, I think, than really any of us, because we were having a hard time letting go.
Yeah.
And ultimately, she didn't have a hard time. She said, it's time to go. Take this breathing apparatus out of my throat. Do you remember where you were when that happened? You were getting a haircut.
Oh,
You'd left the hospital to go get a haircut.
I
And,
didn't remember that.
well, you were getting a haircut. Penny was giving you a haircut over at, I guess, your house or Deanna's, wherever you met them to get a haircut. And I was with Mom, and Mom basically just woke up and just said, I want this out. And, I told her, if you take this out, it's not going to last long. And she understood that, and she wanted it out, and that's when I called you. And I told you to come back up here, Mom wants this thing out. And we all understood what was happening at that point in time.
I think probably she had you handle that because she knew I couldn't. I don't see how I could have done that.
I don't know how I did it, other than I knew that's what she wanted.
Yeah, that's true.
And I don't think any of us were happy with the result. Regardless if we tried to prolong it, the result was inevitable.
Sure.
But it was one of the most powerful things in my life of seeing somebody who was able to do that for themselves and for everybody else around them. Very, very powerful.
Yeah.
So when I say, what do you remember? That's the last impression she left on me.
Mm-hmm.
Was unbelievable strength.
Yeah.
To be able to say, get everybody together, take this thing out of me. I'm done. I'm at peace with that. I understand that. So, did she have a strong faith like you had?
Yeah.
Really did. I mean, wouldn't you have to be some sort of at peace or at comfort knowing that, something as final as that act right there was still going to be a comforted move or something comforting other than just knowing that it's just over life on this earth.
Yeah.
So she had a strong faith.
Definitely.
Okay. So going back in time, it all seems very quick. Does it not? From the time you met her and the time that you took to build your career and become this florist and maintain choir directing and having these children grow up, and to the time that, you know, by the time she left, didn't it seem like that was sitting where you're at now, didn't it seem like that went by really quickly?
Real quickly.
Everything happened in normal time, but it seems very quick now.
Seems quick now. Yeah, it definitely does.
There had to be struggles, Dad.
Yeah.
You said that they were a moderately, middle income family or something like that.
Mhm.
I don't think we were a moderately wealthy family.
No.
I don't know if we were middle income, Dad. I don't have the feeling what I remember growing up. I don't have a memory of having any disposable income. Now, is that just me, or do you remember it similar to that?
I remember it similar to that.
So
We just didn't have it.
you worked a lot of years of your life for very little pay.
Right. Now, Pat's family wasn't any better off, really. I might have painted the wrong picture there. But they struggled too. They had a tough time.
Okay, but to you, they seemed successful.
They did, yeah.
So you saw this beautiful lady who carried herself a certain way, and that gave you a feeling of moving on up the ladder, marrying up,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So I asked you way earlier in this thing, when did you first notice, wealth, that was around y'all? Was everybody that was involved in these small towns, was it a struggle? Did y'all ever come across things of wealth that you noticed and said, man, that would be something right there. That'd be nice.
Oh, yeah. It seemed to me at the time that everybody else had a great life, and it seemed to me like I struggled too much. But I don't think it was any different than anybody else's life.
See, that's the beauty of this. That's why I'm asking, is because I think you were happy.
Yeah,
I think you were fulfilled. You had a great mom and dad. You had a great family.
mm-hmm.
I think you just didn't know any different of this, that, or whatever, because
Absolutely.
you had a relationship with God. You seemed to have everything. I don't think it was. The point I'm trying to make is when your grandkids or great grandkids or anybody down the line watches this, and it's a material world. Is that correct? Today's world is a material world.
Today's world is a material
And you
world.
didn't have hardly any material.
Right.
I have seen pictures of you wearing pants that didn't, I don't know what they were made of, but they were not fitted. These were not store-bought. These were handmade clothes all the way around. And you just had the biggest smile on your face of all time. and your family does not look, they don't look anything other than just a family in the 50s.
Yeah.
And you just standing there with a smile on your face. So I don't think that noticing wealth or seeing wealth meant anything to you. I think you knew that you had to work for every penny and dime that you had.
Yeah, and I didn't mind that.
I think you probably struggled with that at times during your life, that you wanted to make more money,
Yeah, definitely.
but it would have just meant more stuff,
Yeah,
right? Would it have meant a nicer car
yeah,
or ultimately it would have just meant more payments.
sure. Right,
But in the end, everything turned out okay,
it did.
right?
Right.
You went from working at a flower shop to owning a flower shop.
I did.
And the day that you really wanted to sell the flower shop, a lady walks in the door and wants to buy a flower shop. That was fairly good timing. Do you remember that?
I'd forgotten that.
Okay, we were at your flower shop, Town South Floral, and we were basically, we knew that you wanted to retire at this time. Me and you were arguing a lot, and I thought you just didn't like me. And it turns out you didn't like your job. You were tired of working. You were tired of the daily grind. You'd been a florist for how long?
44 years.
No, longer than that. 44 years is. When did you start working in a flower shop?
In 57. No, I actually started before that.
That's right. You started working in a flower shop in Lorraine, Texas.
Yes.
And if you're born in 39, 49, so mid 50s, you were working there before high school or right around the beginning of high school?
Yeah, around the beginning.
So 1955 till 1999 is when you sold.
Yeah.
So I guess that's 45 years or so, maybe you're right. 46 years, something like that. So my bad on the math there, but that's a long time.
Yeah.
Your hands, are your hands still very functional? Does it hurt to use your hands? And is that from playing the piano or from doing corsages and boutonnieres and all of the work, your shoulders and your hands,
Yeah.
all of the florist work?
Oh, it's from the florist work. My shoulders I had to lift my hands up to work on the table, so that lifts these shoulders like this. Everything was affected. My hands cramped. Sometimes I couldn't feel the wire I was taping because they were cramped so. And and especially around holiday time, you just had to keep on going.
So you and Mom worked together at Baldwin's for a while as well.
Yes, we did.
And were those satisfying times?
Oh, greatly.
Getting to work together was a good time.
Yeah.
What are the best things you remember about being in the floral industry?
I just liked it. I could have been anywhere.
Weddings, parties, or just the daily business?
Parties, I think, was my specialty. I think I could just do the big stuff and have fun with it. And I loved that kind of work.
You were doing a big party the day that Taylor was born, correct?
Yeah.
Big party, big event. But so you enjoyed those things. What were your least favorite things about the flower shop? Or the flower shop life? Was it?
It was if I had anything I didn't like about that life, it would be the pressure and the time and that you get for holidays. You just
Valentine's. Mother's Day.
Push so, and there's so many deadlines and so much pressure, and that's the part you don't have to enjoy. But there wasn't anything about what I did that I didn't like.
Most talented designer you ever worked with? That you were influenced by or you were impressed by? Somebody that you worked with that you went, man, that guy's good.
Well, there were so many. When you're in the business that long, you work with. There's countless of people that you work with.
Really talented.
Yeah, really talented people, because that's where they find their jobs.
Hardest arrangement to ever make.
Hardest arrangement.
Most difficult.
I don't find making arrangements difficult.
Emotionally, did you have to make flowers for somebody that was emotionally difficult? I mean, it's fun and games to make it for friends that are having babies or a friend's wedding. Is there a time where you had to make a bouquet or some sort of arrangement for anything that was really hard to make?
Yeah, too. When you have to do funeral flowers, and especially if it's somebody you know or love, it's real disheartening. But at the same token, because you can, you try to make it the best it can be for that occasion because of what it is.
Okay. All right, we've covered a lot of stuff. Now we've got a little bit of stuff that we're going to cover for where you're at now. You are now clearly retired. You don't do anything
Diddly.
for work at all. How old are you today?
I'm good.
How old are you today?
How old am I? I am 83 years old.
Okay. You're 83. Do you have a favorite grandchild?
They're all favorites.
Well, you got to pick one. Is there a favorite?
No.
The number one?
I can't pick a favorite.
Okay, you watch the news a lot, correct?
Yeah, I do.
Do you have feelings about the society, the way society is today? That's different than how it was back in the day.
Yeah.
What do you think some of our biggest struggles are as a society in general? Is it wealth related? Is it racially related? Is it there was the racial issues back when you were young and growing up?
Yeah, there were.
Are the racial issues back then the exact same they are today?
Virtually the same thing
Nothing's changed.
are happening today.
So politics, are they the same way? Politics back then would say anything to get elected, and they do the.
Yeah,
Is it
right.
still a dirty game back then, or was it clean politicians fighting for a young America to keep growing, or were they just as self-centered and dirty back then?
I think they were just as self-centered. I know one time your mom and I was at a square dance, and we were in the city building that's just off of East Broadway. It's a big building, and somebody hollered for us to come to the door. We went to the door and looked out, and there was all of East Lubbock marching in the streets, going to downtown to march. I'd never seen anything like that in Lubbock.
What do you mean, people marching?
Just that. They were out of their cars. They were shoulder to shoulder.
And who were these people?
They were people of East Lubbock, just everybody.
So black people.
Well, black, and they were all
Well, I mean, it's in my world, East Lubbock is
black.
predominantly a black part of town.
Right.
And was it back then, or it was not?
It was pretty much back then.
Okay, and they were marching downtown to go where?
Yeah.
Where were they going? What was their
They were
purpose?
going down to Broadway. Yeah, I didn't know what the whole deal was, but they marched just as a peaceful demonstration.
Okay, so a lot like they do today.
Yeah,
People of,
but I had never seen anything like that.
especially in the small towns you'd grown up in.
Yeah, right.
Most of the towns you grew up in were predominantly
White.
white, right?
Right.
And Lubbock was an integrated town at that time,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. Well, it's still not really integrated.
Right.
There's still different parts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
We struggle with the same issues today
Yeah,
that we struggled with back then.
absolutely.
Why do you think that progress isn't ever made? Or at least progress that could stop some of
Yeah,
the repeating rhetoric.
that's it. I don't know why we have to keep going and you know, the old saying about history repeats itself, it literally does. And why you can't just stop it and get off and let's change it. That just doesn't happen.
What were some of the biggest innovations that happened in your life that made a difference in your life? We talked earlier about you got your first big color TV. Looked amazing to your eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of innovations to this day are you surprised by? Is it cars? Is it telephones? Obviously, the invention of a computer. You know, is it rocket ships that go to space now? Like these new ones that go every weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The world is becoming so unbelievable. There are things happening every day that is historical. They'll be recorded. It's just something that life is happening right around us all the time.
At a very fast pace.
In a fast pace.
Now, when you were young, that was not the case.
No.
Everything was very slow.
Yeah.
Everything was extremely slow.
Right.
So, do you remember living in a house with dirt floors?
I don't, but Mother does.
Okay. So you've always had a real floor
Mm-hmm.
and running water.
Right.
You know what I mean? Hot
Well,
water.
not all necessarily running water. I remember one house we lived in that you had to bring water in.
Okay, so you have been in a home
Yeah.
where you all lived at a young age, but you had to bring water in.
Yeah.
But it had electricity.
Yeah.
Just not running water.
That's right.
Do you remember where that would have been?
Remember what?
What town that would have been in?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I just remember the house.
Okay. So, what do you think you're most proud of at this point in your life? Is it?
I'm most proud of being able to provide a living and pay the bills for my family to live. That's all I ever wanted. I wanted a house. A house was very important to me. But to be able to pay for it, to pay for anything my family needs, that was it. Ultimately, that was the most I could ever hope for.
Provider.
Yeah.
Who do you think taught you? Who do you think you got more of that from? Providing. Your mom or your dad, or them together, or was it somebody else, or was it something they didn't do that drove you to that? What motivated that to be your goal?
I'm not sure because that was always my goal. I never ever thought of, that's all I ever wanted. And I don't know what drove me to it. I don't get a feeling that Mother and Daddy were that strong about it. I don't know why I say that, but they didn't talk to me about anything like that. But I don't know. To me, it was just extremely important to know what was happening in that area and to be ready and prepared and to provide it for my family and go on that way.
Moving forward from today, so me and Kathy have got our lives are pretty much what they are. Do you remember the first time you met Kathy?
Yeah.
Where was this at?
Well, it was at our house. You brought her over there. I think it was, no.
I didn't bring her. First time you met her. Keep going. Let's hear what you got to say, though.
remember I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, the first time you ever met her was when she came to the house to pick up some clean clothes and money.
Oh, well, I don't remember that.
And that might have just been Mom, but I'm pretty sure it was both of y'all.
Okay, I'm just not remembering that.
Oh, that was just Mom. That's the first time Mom met her.
Okay.
And so you continue on with your version. When I brought her over there for what reason? I just brought her in, flaunted her around, and left.
Yeah, well, no, you brought her in because it was Christmas, and I think you wanted to show us, or she wanted to show us, or somebody, her boots she got that Christmas, and that's the first time I remember seeing her.
Okay, so that's your first memory of her. Christmas and boots.
Yeah.
Okay. So, needless to say, I'm guessing she turned out to be a difference maker in our lives.
Yeah, definitely.
Is that how you see her?
Yeah.
Really? You see her as the difference maker? I'm just kidding. I'm just wondering. She's pretty special to you.
Yeah.
So if you're in a bind, you calling me or you calling her?
If I'm in a bind, I'm not sure.
Who are you calling, me or her? So you do believe in me. You think I'm I'm just making sure I still hold a position at a certain place.
Yeah, I would call you.
Okay, good. Okay. Just double check it. Okay, so let's take future generations.
Okay.
Let's take your grandkids and beyond, and let's think about the world and the things that they have to deal with.
Okay.
Right?
Right.
So when you went to school, you jumped over a snake and walked down, between some abandoned lots, and you pretty much just walked to school. Well, this group has got telephones and technology with them 24 hours a day. The world's evolving very fast, just like you said.
Mm-hmm.
What advice do you have for them moving forward to have goals or peace in their life that you had? You had a personal inner peace that you were pretty happy to have what you had. How do you recommend these kids move forward based on the history of our family?
I would say that they need to, I think most of them, like we mentioned, probably put a great deal of emphasis on material things. And I think you have to learn to start shifting that interest to where less of it goes to material and more of it goes to substance, to either your personal relationships with each other, caring about one another, just doing the right thing. But I feel like it's hard for kids to be able to see that. They see a material world that they have to get around to be able to start putting some of those kind of values in their life.
Anything else?
No.
That's all you have for them?
Well, that's pretty generous.
No, that's pretty good. That's good stuff. I mean, they have a lot of challenges they face. So,
Yeah.
Do you think having their own home, is of the same value and importance you have?
Oh, I think so. I think different people put different values on it. To me, that was the most important thing in my life was to provide a home.
But you're wanting them to have a valuable relationship with themselves and those people around them, and to be able to help people that are around them as well. Where do you think that came from with you? Was that something your parents did?
I think so. I think they did it on a bigger scale than I do it, because I think part of what I feel is the fact that they did it more or less for the church rather than just for the family. And I think first of all, it became the church, and then the next important value became the family. I think I probably would have reversed those roles, but I think that's the way they placed them.
So they put the church and the congregation's families in front of their own.
I felt like that a lot, yeah.
And then that impacted you, certainly, but in the end, it's what they felt like they had to do to build a church.
Right,
And that impacted more people in general.
absolutely,
It impacted me.
yeah,
I mean, that's probably the biggest thing they left me was their ability to just help people,
right, yeah.
comfort people,
Mhm.
you know, in times of need or whatever, just somebody to talk to or anything like that. That's a gift, you know, that they gave.
Right,
Okay, man, the next time we see you, we're going to be playing the piano and
Okay.
talking a little bit more about your musical side,
okay,
and we'll see you then.
okay.